now that we have our our tables inside of Athena working, let's go ahead and check out Lambda.
Cool.
So this one's going to be an intro to Lambda, not Lambda talking directly to Athena yet. Let's check out Lambda. To get to Lambda, we've been doing all of our Visual Studio stuff with Visual Studio 2015 at the moment.
Yes.
It is time to switch to Visual Studio 2017.
Look at that fancy logo.
I know, it's so swanky. So I'm using the Community Edition of 2017.
Nice.
And the biggest difference you'll find is that the new project is actually over here now, as opposed to like on the left-hand side. It's a bit weird. Anyway, yeah, tiny things. Let's wait for whatever this component cache is doing to hurry up and finish itself. In fact, while that's doing that, I'm going to jump over and talk about the next bit because it just finished as I was talking.
I've always noticed that the higher Microsoft bumps their number, the slower it got.
Oh yeah. That's why you need a faster computer every year.
Yeah, that's because of Microsoft.
All right, so to work with AWS in Visual Studio, do a Google search for AWS Visual Studio 2017, and you will find the AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio 2017.
So it's more like a little window into AWS.
Yep, from Visual Studio.
Yep.
Which is super handy for deployments, as we'll see very soon. So download this, install it, and be happy. Right, so into Visual Studio, I am going to assume that you have already got it installed and we can continue on with life. Can that recording thing go away, please? Thank you. So we'll go to File, New, Project, and we will find, hey, .NET Core. No, let's go to AWS Lambda.
What?
And we will pick on a AWS Serverless Application .NET Core. And we'll call this Welcome to Lambda. Lambdas.
One.
So yeah, that's like we'll just call it that. Welcome to Lambdas, and we'll say okay. Notice that it's running .NET Core, and you go, wow, it's running .NET Core. That's great and amazing, and it is great and amazing. Except it's running .NET Core version 1, not .NET Core version 1.1, and not .NET Core version 2. Though hopefully at reInvent in a few months they will give us some exciting news. So right now it's just .NET Core version 1.
I'm worried about .NET Core 2 in Lambda can have an even longer spin-up time. I mean 2.
I think it'll go faster.
.NET Core 2 spin-up time is slower than .NET 1. Yeah.
Well, let's get into this.
Anyway, let's worry about it.
Nick is progressing to an issue that we will have to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go for an empty serverless application.
Yeah.
You could go all these cool things. So they have this.
Have a web API like that. That's so cool.
Just like that.
That's so cool.
It is very, very cool. Lambdas are so much fun. Anyway, all right. So empty serverless application. Let's just go with the blank project. And we'll just wait for it to create. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a very simple method that we will spin up as a Lambda. And then using the serverless.template that exists right here, we will have that create a HTTP endpoint that we can talk to that will call our Lambda for us. And you go, I don't quite get what any of that means. You will soon see. So welcome to Lambdas. Let's go straight into the function. And this is the default stuff, which is the default constructor. So everything should be just as you would expect it to be. And the serialization, you'll have a question about your serializing later on. This is a nice wrapper for Newtonsoft JSON convert. Yes, I always think, what's that one called? I know it's got a J in it. Of course it does. It's JSON.
No, it's because it's made by a guy called James. I'm not. His name's James.
His name is James. Was he named after Jason?
What?
Jason? J-S-O-N?
Yeah.
James?
James? No.
No.
I don't think so.
We're both trying to be smart asses and we're both
nothing came to mind.
No, for both of us. All right, so here we have just a regular function. So lambdas are functions. When you call your function on AWS and say, please launch this function or please run this function, it says, cool, I will go and spin up a new container service that contains only your function inside of it. And then you can call only that function. And now that container only has access to whatever that function does. And then after it runs it, so the first thing it does has to create the container, put your code on it, load that code into memory, and then execute your function. Then it keeps it alive for a little bit longer and says, you know what, just in case someone talks to me, the function again, I will keep myself alive. So the next time you run it, it's instant, super fast. Then if it doesn't get any activity for about half an hour, I think it is.
Yeah, it's half an hour.
Yeah, it goes, all right, cool, well, I am not required anymore. And so it turns the container off, taking your function away. So that's what Lambdas, how they work. And you'll see this in action right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see it in action. So we can create it's got this all set up already for us to go for an API gateway response, proxy response. So this is a function that is being set up in Lambda that it will create the function for, and also an API gateway service for us, which will point to that function. So then we can say, hey, it's an API endpoint. It's just a HTTP GET request, call it, and then it goes behind the scenes, spins up the container and does everything. Just like we were doing, it's no different to interact with than our API that we had before. We're just now, instead of saying it's an EC2 server that's always on, it's 2 AWS services instead of one that is a server that we have set up as a web server.
They made this so easy. So cool.
Indeed.
So hot right now.
Nick is excited about this because he was doing things a different way, and so now we're going to show him another way of doing it faster.
Show me the cool way.
Show me the cool way. So let's put in here context.logger.
It's got its own logger.
It's got to write CloudWatch. Hi Nick.
Hi.
I have been logged.
Oh, fair enough.
And that is going on behind the scenes. So we might have a whole bunch of sub methods here. Do some stuff.
So so this will show up in the CloudWatch logs, just like the console.writeline.
Yep.
Cool.
So instead of using console.writeline, you would now use context.logger.logline, and that'll write it to the log for you to look at inside of AWS. Cool. All right, so you could have your method do as much stuff as you want, as much heavy listing. Maybe it goes and talks to a database and then passes that database stuff back to you, and then you do some more logic based around that, and then create an object and pass that back out to the user. So this is everything you can do inside of there. So let's just do some stuff. Right, I've been logged. Whoops, I meant to copy that, not cut it. Do some other stuff, and then hi Nick again. All right, so now we've got all of our logic created. Let's, logic created. This is the response that's going to get passed back to the user. You can see that this is a HTTP response. So we've got a status code, we've got a body, and we've got the headers that's going to go into there. Let's change this hello AWS serverless to this is the body of the request.
Let's also change the status code to 418.
What's 418?
I'm a teapot.
Really?
Yep.
I am.
No, you just have to, 418.
418. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So this is, look at the function name. Look at the function name. It's called get. Let's call this, just to show that it doesn't have to be called get, let's call it
Jeff. Oh. It's
Jeff the function.
It's Jeff the function.
All right, it's Jeff the function. So we can call it whatever we want, and you don't just have to have one in here. You could have a whole bunch of them inside of there. Let's create another one.
What? Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Let's create a second one.
Oh.
And we'll just copy paste the entire method, and then we'll call this. What are we going to call this one? It's Sarah the function.
Yeah. Yep.
I am Sarah.
Cool.
And Sarah is also saying hi, Nick.
Okay, oh, that's nice.
Cool. So let's go into what we can do right now.
Run it. Oh.
You can run them locally.
Oh.
But what's going to happen if you run this locally? You don't have a main function. You don't have a static main. You don't have args being passed in. So it's just going to go, I have no idea what to run. So instead of running it locally, we instead deploy it or publish to AWS.
Right.
Which is quite cool. So this will go ahead, if we just say publish to AWS, it's going to pop up with this thing that's going to say, hey, where do you want me to publish stuff to? Or what account do you want me to use? So in here, I've got one that I called the Our Conference. I guess I'll just keep using that one. So in your case, you would go add account and then add in your name and then an access key and a security key. and then your AWS account number. So all the things that you can, we've seen the AWS access key and security key, which we use when we set up our DataBricks
things.
Mounting the S3 buckets as local DNS drives.
The IAM role stuff.
Yep. The account number just needs to know what account it should be talking to when using those two. And we go, great, that's fine. So let's go cancel out of that because I've already got mine set up.
Yep.
We're going to deploy this to it. We're going to use the debug or the release. Let's just go straight to release. The framework it's going to use is .NET or the .NET Core App 1.0. The 0 is incredibly important when you're trying to deal with NuGet packages and it like goes, ooh, .NET Core, I'll pull in 1.1 for you. And then you deploy it and it goes, no, I don't work with that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you that until you deploy it. The stack name. So if this is your first time deploying it, then you should type in your name. What should we call this one? Let's call it Nick is wearing a black shirt.
That is true, actually.
It's not a red shirt today, Nick.
No, it's not. I've got no red today.
So when we deploy it, it says this is the name of the stack that it's going to be using. And you'll see that in action pretty soon. It'll call the lambdas, prefix all lambdas with Nick is wearing a black shirt. And all API gateways will be called the Nick is wearing a black shirt API gateway. It says if I'm going to store this somewhere, then I need an S3 bucket that it should publish itself to, because everything is stored in S3. Then it spins up the container, reads that your DLLs from S3 into the container. So the S3 bucket that we'll use in this case, we will call it a new one. We will. Nick is wearing a black shirt. Bucket. Okay.
It's weird to me that they call them buckets.
Error creating the bucket is not valid. Nick, your bucket is black shirt is not valid.
Right. Bucket of beans.
Bucket of sweet beans. Is that valid? Ah, why not?
Caps? No.
Bucket of sweet beans. Alright, it's capital letters. Which is weird because you can have capital letters in your S3 bucket.
Actually, no, you can only have them in the folders.
Ah, yes, good point. Good point. We could have gone for Nick is wearing a black shirt.
Oh, well.
Anyway, this is going to be a bucket of sweet beans. So now we can say, hey, I don't want to have to pick all these options every single time. Save that into AWS Lambda tools defaults.json for next time.
Cool.
So now we go publish. And then we chill. And then we chill. And then we chill. So you can see what it's doing here. It's taking your code, it's built it, and then it's zipping them up, and then it's pushing that zip file to S3. And then it's going ahead and behind the scenes, it's using what's called CloudFormation. It's created a CloudFormation script that says, go ahead and get this stack and deploy it. And now there's another script inside of there that tells it how to deploy it. What lambdas should it be creating? What
API gateway.
What API gateway should it be talking to? Any variables, environment variables you've got set up, it's going to deploy all of that onto AWS for us. So now we chill and we wait while it does a create in progress. In fact, while it's doing that, let's go to AWS.
Actually watch it.
And go to Lambda. Lambda. Run code without thinking about servers. Serverless. Where did we deploy it to? That's going to be the problem. I'm hoping... no, so I would have already had that to Oregon. All right, awesome. So now I've got one Lambda function. Let's go to manage the functions. And it says, cool, I've got Nick is wearing a black shirt.
Yeah.
And it's a GET request.
Yeah.
So you go, hey, Richard, hang on. But you had two functions. You can see this says create complete. You had... It's Jeff the function and it's Sarah the function.
I'm going to be pretty interested in seeing how it works.
So that is all going to be populated from the serverless.template. So there's this get thing in here, and there's all this config about that get request, that get function. Yeah, look what it's called it here. Nick is wearing a black shirt -get.
Yeah, but what is it called?
So what it's looking for is where should I be calling?
Yeah. So
get calls. The handler, welcome to lambdas.function.
So this is going to throw an error.
So this is going to throw an error, essentially, yeah, because I forgot to actually rename this part first.
Okay, fair enough.
So what is it talking about here? The handler, it says, what am I supposed to call? And it says the handle that you would call when this function called get is invoked is welcome to lambdas, which is the namespace. Then it says welcome to lambdas dot functions, so namespace dot class, and then what's the function name inside of that class. So if we call this one it's Jeff the function, and say, so when someone calls this one functioning Jeff, so when someone calls functioning Jeff, then that should call it's Jeff the function. And now all this other stuff in here is, hey, how much memory should I put onto this container? How long should I have as a timeout? Is there any particular AWS security you want me to run with? The policy that tells me what I have access to do, where I should be writing. And now this part here is all the API gateway. So if we look at this,
it looks quite intimidating when you first see it, but when you like break it down into small things, it makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. So this one is not going to work at the moment, and that is just an oversight on my part. So let's come back to here. Now that we've changed get, which was pointing at this function called get that didn't exist inside of our code, because we named it to it's Jeff the function. Let's come back here and call the Lambda will now be called functioning Jeff, and it will call it's Jeff the function.
Yeah, but what if we want to call Sarah?
One at a time. One at a time. So now that we've put all that in, there was the region, US West Oregon. We can publish it and it'll have everything just as it was, because we told it to save the stuff that it was using before. And if you're still confused going, but I want to see the function running, you will see it very soon. Let's just check how long this video has been going for so far. We're up to 16. We can finish this one off.
Yep.
All right, update in progress. Look at how much stuff it's got to do here. Whoa, all this stuff now. It's got to do a whole bunch more. It can't just create anymore. It has to take the old one, take it down, put the new one up there, do any updates it's got, and then redeploy everything. Thankfully, it does all that for us, and we don't have to care.
That's pretty nice.
I like that we don't have to care.
Man, props to the people who made all these cool Amazon AWS things.
Oh god, yeah.
I mean, it's really cool to do when you like, you know, it's pretty cool. What a cool thing to come up with.
What, lambdas?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean lambdas, but also being like, oh wait, what if we could run code anywhere, and you just be like, give me the code, and
I'll just run it.
Yeah, just run it.
Yeah. Pretty rad.
It is quite
Very rad. All right. Cool. So update complete. Let's go and check out our AWS account, which is this Lambda, and we'll press refresh on this page. Whoops, that was the wrong one.
That's not the one.
That's not.
I bet this will work too. Oh, didn't. Just click the refresh thing.
Not. Oh, it's a touch screen. I forget about that every day. So Nick's just refreshed it for us, and now we can see that we've got the stack name. Nick is wearing a black shirt. And the function name that we described in the template is called functioning Jeff. So now we can go and say, hey, what do you do, functioning Jeff? And now we're inside the Lambda itself. And it's just checking itself out to do some stuff. There we go. Say, hey, if you wanted to, you could upload your own library over the top of this. We're not going to do that because we're using the serverless template to deploy everything for us. We go into configuration, and it says, cool, the handler is...
Oh, just like everything we specified in the thing.
Yep. The role is we'll just use a bunch of role. We're not worrying about security right now on this one. But yes, we're currently concerned about security. Don't get me wrong. But this doesn't need a role to talk to other services just yet. And then we go look at the trigger. And it says, how should this function be called? And it says, you should call this function when someone talks to this API gateway. And we'll see more about that soon. You can also say, hey, let's look at another trigger. What else could call this? We could say when someone commits code into code commit, then it should tell us about it. When someone writes to S3, it should tell us about it. When someone writes to a Kinesis stream, it should tell this function to do something. So there's loads of ways that you can call a Lambda. Now, let's go ahead and test it. So if we test this by coming and clicking up here, it'll say...
give us some stuff to give me.
Whoa, let's go back there. What do you want to pass in to me as your example data? Now, we've got nothing to pass in because we're not reading it. So we just kind of go, it doesn't really matter. Leave it alone. And say save and test.
Cool.
And you'll see, hey, this is taking a while to turn on because what it's doing the first time you run a function is it has to go to S3, bring that code to the Lambda, spin up the container, and then execute it. So if this is the very first one, let's explore the details and look at this. And it says this is what was returned. So it returned 418, and this is the body of the request. So it's worked. And look, hi Nick, I have been logged. Hi Nick again.
That's very cool.
So this has been logged to the output. So this has been logged to the log.
So can we call this via API gateway then?
We can. I just want to finish this one here off a little bit more first.
Yep.
So look at this. The very first time it ran this, it says it took 2.4 seconds to run. So we got charged for 2.5 seconds because that's the roundup. But that was the very first time to run it. Let's run it again.
Bang.
Bam. 33 milliseconds. Bam. And 2.24 milliseconds.
Jesus.
So pretty cool. So now we can just keep on running it because everything is loaded, it's ready to go. We could just run this function again and again and again. It's going to go super duper fast because it's already up and running.
That's cool.
This video is now going on a bit over time. So let's finish this one. And then in the next one, we'll look at the API gateway.
Cool.
And we'll also get the second function, Sally, to be working as well.
All right.